way I can. So what I do is I meet with parents, I meet with teachers. I have worked in teacher centers, and I've also worked with families, one-on-one coaching. I also do a presentation, a very extensive 7-week course. And when I start the presentation, I'm going to give credit to Cindy Goldrich, who is a mental health counselor, and she is an author of 2 books on ADHD, and she is the creator of this program. This is her life work, and I am here to present her work to you and to others in any opportunity I can. So I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. Now, Gloria, I just want to know whether you're seeing the screen.
Yes, I am.
Great, perfect. Okay, so the top 10 strategies for parenting children and teens with ADHD and executive function challenges. And we are going to be talking about what is executive function. When we refer to children, we do not say ADHD children. They are children with ADHD because ADHD does not define them. We already went off my bio. I included my training certificate. It was an incredibly wonderful experience going through this training to become a parent coach and a teacher trainer with other professionals in the field. Many parents also joined, and they are training other parents as well. So the objective today is to provide an overview of the challenges of parenting children and teens with ADHD and executive function challenges. Please put your questions in the chat, and I will work with Gloria to get your questions answered. If it's something I can't answer, I am not able to answer now, then I will certainly get back to you and we can communicate by email. So it's very important for parents to get fully educated about how ADHD and executive function challenges impacts learning, motivation, behavior, and the whole family system. So number 1, this is number 1 out of 10, ADHD, the basics and beyond. What do you think of when you hear ADHD? So sadly, when you ask a group to think back to their childhood and they think and they talk about those children who couldn't sit still, who were impulsive and had all the behaviors that a child with ADHD has, we think back, oh my, that was the bad child, that was a disruptive child. Well, thankfully, we are so well beyond that now. But when we think of ADHD, what do we think of? We think of the child who presents in a classroom in a certain way. ADHD is a complex neurobiological condition. ADHD is highly hereditary. So for a child who has ADHD, 40% of them also have a parent with ADHD, and 30% have a sibling with ADHD. So when I'm speaking to a parent about their child and ADHD comes up in the conversation, very often we hear, he's just like his father. I have the same issues that he does or she does. And this is true, absolutely true. Approximately 9.4% of school-aged children and between 2 and 4% of adults have been diagnosed with ADHD. So what I tell teachers is 1 child or more, perhaps 2, in your class will be a child with ADHD, diagnosed or undiagnosed. 85% of adults with ADHD are undiagnosed and would qualify for treatment. So the debate is over and the truth about ADHD is clear. ADHD is a mainstream medical psychological, and educational organizations have concluded that ADHD is a real brain-based medical disorder and children and adults benefit from appropriate treatment. So it's not that a child with behaviors is a child who has a bad parenting or is being just not behaving properly. That's not it. The loading and releasing of the neurotransmitters dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the front portion of the brain, is inconsistent for people with ADHD. These neurotransmitters contribute to maintaining alertness, increasing focus, and sustaining thought, effort, and motivation. And brain scans will show a difference in the brain of somebody with ADHD. But we do not use that to diagnose ADHD. That is not the preferred method, but it is possible. There are 3 presentations of ADHD. The predominantly inattentive presentation, and this was previously known as ADD, but in 1987, it was changed to ADHD. Predominantly hyperactive and impulsive presentation is what we usually think of when we think of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And then it is said that girls usually present as inattentive, while boys more frequently will present as hyperactive and impulsive. And it is unfortunate that very often the girls will be undiagnosed. And undiagnosed children with ADHD may end up with depression and other side effects because they are not being recognized or treated. The third is a combined presentation, challenges in attention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Details of the descriptions and symptoms can be found in the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. So we have to understand how executive functions impact learning and emotion, because challenges in executive function and ADHD go hand in hand. What is executive function? Executive functions are a set neurobiological based skills that have to do with managing oneself and one's resources in order to achieve a goal. It's how we do things. Sorry, I'm stuck. Just give me one moment. Here we go. Executive functions are the brain's control center that orchestrates resources like memory, language, and attention in order to achieve a goal. And it's located in the prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, which is the last part to develop. So I tell my students in Hofstra and in Adelphi and St. John's, I'm not in Hofstra yet, coming, that typically the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until they're 25 to 30 years old. And then I ask them to raise their hands. So, and then I point out that they're making the most important decisions of their life before their brain is fully developed, but that's just the way it is. So this is an excellent, I really like this chart because it lays out 8 executive functions. And as I speak about them, think about your child. Before I ask you to think about what executive function challenges them the most or challenges them at all, first let's everybody think about something really awesome. We're not going to share, but I want you to keep in mind something just wonderful about your child. And so if we asked, what's something wonderful you could share? Keep that in mind, because now I'm going to ask you to think about difficulties that they have. So the executive functions that are listed in front of you in purple boxes are those that can be measured by testing. And so that's working memory, processing speed, attention, paying attention, and flexible thinking. But these are the 8 executive functions. So one is initiation and activation, which is the ability to begin a task without undue procrastination. And if I said, well, who of you has a child that has difficulty getting started in the morning, starting their homework? You would probably be shaking your head. This is very typical of a child who has ADHD. So we talk about this with teachers who usually start the day with something very important in the morning as they walk in, and it's waiting at their children's desks. So maybe they need to give a little bit of warm-up time and a little bit of help to those children who are coming into the classroom who will have trouble getting started. So procrastination is typical. Something else that you would probably be shaking your head yes to is organizing and planning and prioritizing and creating order in your life. So there are tools that we use in school to help children with planning and organizing. And I would think that these would also work very well with parents at home. Creating lists is very important. And what I tell some parents that I've worked with, if your child has trouble remembering, well, when we get to working memory, but organizing and getting started and working on things that are in a list, put that list on a Post-it and put it at the point where they have to do it. Because you don't want to be the one that's there nagging. Just have them check the list, and it's a little child, a small child. Draw little pictures. This is what you have to do when you go into the bathroom. A, B, C, D. A picture of a toothbrush. Wash your face. Anything that you would ask them to do. Brush your hair before you go to sleep. Pictures, because that's the problem with parenting children with ADHD. We feel like we have to nag over and over again, but we don't. We have to say it with the fewest words so that we're not creating stress. So the next executive function is attention, the ability to sustain focus for tasks that are challenging or uninteresting. And so we say children with ADHD can be hyper-focused on certain things. They could have just interest in collections, in trains, in video games. Why can they pay attention to that, but they can't pay attention to something else? It's because it's not interesting to them. It's not grasping them. And it needs to be super exciting for them to keep and maintain and sustain that attention. One of the last executive functions that I understood to be part of ADHD is the emotional regulation, managing frustration and modulating emotions. These are the children that go from 0 to 60. Their reactions don't match what happened. They can't let go of it. Something that I talk about, and because we're limited for time, is how to help those children. It's to make them part of the solution. And there's something called collaborative problem solving. I'll talk to you a little bit later on about a 7-week course that I give for parents, and one full 2-hour session is dedicated to this. But to summarize it, it's figuring out what the problem is, listening to your child tell the problem first, then you give your child your take on it, what it means to you, and then they get first crack at a solution that you can both live with. And then you write the solution down, and this is something that they're invested in, and you tell them when we're going to come back and look at it. It's a lot more detailed, but that's a summary. Self-monitoring, self-talk, that's your job as a parent, is to be the model for self-talk. When you're frustrated about something that came up, talk out loud about it. let them know, yeah, I'm frustrated and I just have to go on and figure out how I'm going to deal with this because I wasn't expecting this. But live your life out loud a little bit so they can hear, your child can hear how somebody without ADHD or how an adult can talk themselves through problems. Working memory is also it's challenging for children. So you want to keep information and what you're expecting from your child, limit it. You can't send them upstairs and spew 15 things that they need to do, and that's an exaggeration, even 5. You have to give them small steps so that they can remember, because they get frustrated when they can't, but they can't. And then when I talk about processing speed, think about when you were in school and the children who raised their hand first were the first ones to, the speediest readers when we were asked to read out loud. They don't do that much anymore. First one to answer a math problem. What do we think? Oh, those were the smart kids, which is really unfortunate because children with processing speed problems who have ADHD, they need time, and ADHD has nothing to do with intelligence. So I tell teachers, everybody needs the same amount of time. You can't go for that one with the hand up first. Okay, we have think time. Good, give me a thumbs up when you have your answer. Now turn and talk and share your answer with a partner, or I'll call on you. It's very important because processing speed, working memory, they get worse when children are anxious. So we have to alleviate that anxiety. And then flexible thinking, the child with ADHD is not the best team player when it comes to group projects. So if your child has ADHD and is part of a group of 4, try to work through the, help them learn how to think flexibly, even in life. Give them choices. Okay, you want to do this? Let's think of some other things that would work in the same way, so that they're learning to adjust their thinking, and that when they are in a group project with children in school, it's not their way. I don't want to be on this with this group anymore. Everything I say, they don't agree with. But your child is not being open-minded either. So anyway, these are the executive function, 8 executive functions that we talk about in regard to children with ADHD. So what lies beneath ADHD? Think of it as a pyramid, right? So in the top of the an iceberg. What's on the top is generally what we think of: impulsivity, hyperactivity, and inattentiveness. But there's more. There's a lot beneath the surface. So deficits in executive function skills can be up to a 30% delay in elementary school children. It could be a 2-year delay, which is very difficult. When you think of those executive function skills we talked about, the children are at, that's difficult for them because they are not at the same level as their peers. There are deficits we spoke about in emotional self-regulation. They're understimulated. Their brain is when they're bored. And you can't say, can't you just sit still and pay attention? Because if they could, they would. So also beneath the iceberg, an impaired sense of time, sleep disturbances. There may be coexisting conditions. Unfortunately, there could be depression, anxiety, OCD, ODD. Not every child, but some. There could be learning problems. Not every child, but it could be. And of course, we talked about low frustration tolerance. So this is what's beneath the iceberg. And in the corner, you see a gadget. So what that is I'm just going to call it a fidget. And a fidget is a tool, not a toy. And we use fidgets in school. You can encourage fidgets, using a fidget at home during homework time. My daughter is in a doctorate program now, and I don't know if you can see me, but I'm going to hold up This is what she keeps at the computer when she's in a class. So she's listening to the instructor, but her fingers are pressing little bubbles in here. It's not her primary focus. It is her secondary focus. And this is how she pays attention to her professors. So it sits on her lap, and this is what she does. In schools, there are buckets of fidgets of all kinds. Once it becomes a toy and not a tool, it's not the right fit for a certain child. But teachers will offer it to the whole class because they don't want to single out the child with ADHD who needs it. And many children can benefit from it, but this is one, and that little gadget in the corner is one. So we talk a great deal about fidgets when we speak with teachers. So does your child take too long in the bathroom? Yes, that's because of ADHD and time, because time is now and not now. That's a child with ADHD has a very poor sense of time. So this is something that's used in the classroom. This is something that could be used at home, and it's called a timed timer. A child can look at this clock and actually see the passing of time because the red section is going to close in after 15 minutes. This is very helpful in school, very helpful to some parents who have one for homework time, or even putting it in a playroom and say, dinner is in 10 minutes. I'm going to set your timed timer for 10 minutes. Come in when it's over. You can't just say, okay, I'll see you at the dinner table in 10 minutes. I don't think that will work for you. Well, for many of you. So as for diagnosis and treatment, proper diagnosis is extremely important. Why it matters, who can diagnose, what is involved in the diagnosis. So why it's important, a proper diagnosis, is because we need to rule out other issues like sleep, family, or medical issues, something in the home environment. My nephew exhibited symptoms of ADHD, and it was juvenile diabetes. I've talked to parents who have children with celiac, and their symptoms really mimicked ADHD. It could be sleep deprivation, and it could be anything. So you need a proper diagnosis, and who can diagnose can be a variety of professionals, pediatricians, psychiatrists. They must be an expert in ADHD. A teacher cannot diagnose. If a teacher suspects, you will hear a teacher say, I think you should, this is what I'm seeing, this is what you're seeing. You should visit your pediatrician and have this conversation with your pediatrician. You want to make sure that your pediatrician doesn't miss something. Now, what needs to be treated? You have to determine if it's ADHD or if there are other coexisting conditions that may also need to be addressed. And maybe if it's not ADHD, it's some other condition that can look like it. So these are some of the treatment options, right? Medication, good for some, not good for others. I've heard stories of success, great success. I've heard parents who it just was not an option for them and their family, and I understand that too. School accommodations and modifications can help tremendously. Some children will need therapy. Some children can benefit from coaching, and parent education is probably the most important. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide What is a parent coach? I'll tell you what a parent coach is. A parent coach, very often, I will meet with parents for the 7-week session in groups of maybe 15 to 20. Afterwards, I always check in with a coaching session to follow. Some parents would like to continue, and they want to have somebody, a sounding board. They want to run it by me. They want opinions, comparisons to other things, strategies that work, sharing successes, a difficult day. So that's what parent coaching would be. And of course, it has to be right for your family, and the child has to be willing. The parent coach can meet with the child, but the parent coach usually meets with the parent and takes the stories from the parent. Okay. So now for your perspective. Now, this is a disability perspective. I teach all parents that if your child could, they would. This is not a child choosing to act the way they are. I just want to read a few of these items. It's on the page I'm holding in my hand. It says 12 things students with ADHD would like their teachers to know. It's by Eileen Bailey. And I think this is very powerful, and I share this with teachers. Number 1, I forget things, even important things. There's a myth that states if it's important enough, you'll remember it. Please understand that this is a myth. My memory may not work the same as yours. Just because I forget doesn't mean that it doesn't matter to me. I am not trying to be a smart aleck or arrogant when I say I forgot. I really do forget. And here's another one. I'm not stupid. I may sometimes lose my place during your class or take a few minutes to get my thoughts together before speaking, but I am not stupid. ADHD does not have anything to do with my intelligence. And then you have, I wanted to read a few that says here, if you notice me acting in inappropriate ways, please talk to me in private. Please do not talk to me in front of the class. This is humiliating. Please do not insult me or call attention to my differences or weaknesses in front of other students. So these are, to me, are very powerful. And if you'd like a copy, you can email me and I will certainly send it to you. And then I also wanted to share that I have a letter. It's a sample letter to teachers, but it's such a good letter. It's when your child is starting school and you want your teacher to know, a little bit about your child and things that have worked. So here, I'm just going to read a few to you. Okay, my son takes medication, which generally helps him focus and manage his impulsivity. Though, of course, it's not perfect. He can get easily distracted, have trouble staying motivated and engaged, and can be fidgety at times. We thought it might be helpful to share tips that have been successful in the past. Although you may be aware of many of these, we felt they were worth highlighting. If you find he's distracted, a gentle pat on his shoulder, or perhaps some signal you arrange with him discreetly in advance can be helpful. He knows he gets distracted and would welcome your discreet assistance. Help him figure out where the best place for him to sit is to reduce distractions and temptations. The next one talks about if he's fidgety, some things you can do. Have him hand out papers, bring a note, even if it's a blank, to another teacher. It will help settle him. If he can have a stress ball, that's helpful, and use it as a fidget device. I'll read one more. He's not always aware that he's doing something that might be distracting. When you ask him to stop, a specific statement like, please stop kicking the table, will make him aware, and he will generally stop. So this is a really good letter, and if you'd like me to share it with you, I will. Now I want you to see the strengths and not just the weaknesses. So I'm going to share a few words with you. Okay, so what best describes your child? You can say hyperactive, aggressive, argumentative, impulsive, bossy, but you can also say full of energy, creative and imaginative, persuasive, spontaneous, a leader. It's all it's all your perspective, right? Bossy, he's a leader. Impulsive, spontaneous. See the world through your child's eyes. Unconditional love to offset the reprimands and reminders of their challenges. Parent the child you have, and that's very important. You might have to parent your child a little bit differently than your neighbor. You might have to parent your child different than the sibling. So you have to make sure that you have your child in mind and your child's best interest in mind always. I'm going to let's take a minute to see if there's any questions, and then I can continue. Do we have any questions in the chat?
Yeah, we do. Let me start. Can there be cases of ADHD with high executive function, or is it mutually exclusive?
No, I think everything is on a spectrum. So it's on yes, you can have impulsivity, you can be hyperactive, you can have a combination, but maybe it won't affect your working memory. Maybe it will. You know, each child is an individual, and that's why we say to parent the child you have, and we tell teachers to teach the child that's sitting in front of you.
Are there any downsides to medication besides the typical side effects? Are there any studies of the long-term effects of medication?
So I would ask you to look up some research on your own. I know some of the difficulties in school is child is on medication and is not hungry, doesn't eat. At 2 o'clock, the child is starving, the medication is wearing off, and you have to have a teacher who's kind and aware and will say, okay, take out your granola bar. I know you're hungry and mom has to be aware, or bring a lunch. I don't know, that doesn't always work, to bring lunch up with you and eat it when you're ready. But there are things, but you know what? Teachers are aware, the nurse is aware. And then we always say, you give your child medication in the morning and they hold it together and they're excellent. And then the parenting comes in when you have to sit with your child who's not on medication anymore, and you have to get through the homework with them. So yeah, I see the day-to-day effects. I also see excellent success stories, and we work out the difficulties. So it's a personal opinion, and I can't give the long-term effects. I don't know how to speak to that right now.
At what age do you feel ADHD can be properly diagnosed?
When I speak to Cindy Goldrich, she will say at, you know, as young as kindergarten, first grade, or you can diagnose early. I personally brought my daughter for an evaluation in 9th grade. And what was brought back to my attention was she has ADHD. She can compensate on her own. She does not need medication. Sometimes she's you know, well in her 30s, and she's a teacher, and she says, I don't understand why I wasn't on medication in high school. I would have been so much better off. She did fine. But I could share another interesting story, because we were always at battle, because she did not want to do her homework until after dinner, actually pretty late at night, and with her headphones on. And that's, in my mind, that wasn't acceptable. She needed to do it when she came home from school, at a clean table, sitting at the dining room table. Now I am so much more knowledgeable. And at that time, I learned a lot. Her clock, she knows her rhythm. She worked best at 8 o'clock at night, and that was okay. And the reason she had headphones on was to drown out outside noise That was her white noise. So I learned a lot from that evaluation, that sometimes you have to, what's good for you is not always good for your child. And sometimes they do know best how they learn best.
When you stated that the frontal lobe isn't fully developed until 25 to 30, is that the same for someone with ADHD, or is it later?
So the brain is fully developed at the same time, except the executive function skills are lagging. So it takes them time to catch up. So I don't know for certain to say that, no, they need another. I would believe by then, because some children will outgrow many of the symptoms from ADHD, and you won't see it if they don't all progress into adulthood.
What's your advice when parents of toddlers suspect ADHD well before they are old enough for a diagnosis? It's a good question.
So it's a good time maybe to talk to a pediatrician, because there's so many other possibilities. So I would just say, have that conversation with a pediatrician. And I believe if everything else is ruled out, they might just say, watch, just watch, see what happens when there are more demands put on them. Because what demand, like, what are we asking toddlers to do? How would we see, they should be allowed to be impulsive and not necessarily attend like we would like them to sit for a video game or a movie. So I think you need to wait a little bit longer, but make sure there's nothing medical that needs to be addressed.
That's all I got.
Okay, good, because I'm going to keep going. So when logic doesn't work and extra love doesn't do it, patience is crucial, but still not enough. Strict rules won't solve the problems, but you do need to have consistent. Strictness and rules won't solve the problem, but you do need consistency. Absolutely. ADHD specific tips, tools, strategies, knowledge. Let me go back. This is what we need. The child's brain is like a city with streets that are all connected and carry traffic. Imagine the streets are neuron pathways that traffic all of the information, sensory input, impulse, feelings, and instructions, and the traffic lights are not in sync. And there's gridlock and chaos and frustration. This is in your child's head. So all of the information takes time to process. This is hard for them. Imagine for a moment what it's like for them. And these tips are the tip of the iceberg. And I had said that in Calm and Connected, it's almost 14 hours worth of information that can be helpful as well. So children need a calm environment. They need structure and consistency to reduce the stress and chaos. And they need support at the point of performance. And that's very important. So for instance, if you need your child to come down for dinner, don't yell, come on down, go up there, look them in the eye and say, right now, or okay, finish, put what you're doing away. Now is the time. But what we talk about in Calm and Connected is how important it is for you to stay calm, because even if your child is not calm, and one of my favorite expressions is, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. I love that. Children will test the limits, so make sure you have them. Let's see, what do your children know about ADHD? You can teach them about the brain, and you can ask how they feel about having ADHD. Now, this comes up with self-care and nutrition, exercise, and sleep. Nutrition, exercise, and sleep are always very important, but we do notice that children with ADHD are less interested, it seems, and not all, but many, in self-care. Maybe the girl's hair's a little messy, or I'm just not interested in this part of their life. So that's a parent's responsibility to help them with that. And this is important, and I had mentioned before, do they know how they learn best? Have that conversation with your child, because they might know more than you. And do they know their rights? This is for older children. Can they advocate for themselves? Do they see their own interests, talents, and passions as gifts and possibilities to be nourished? So you don't want to see them depressed about what they can't do, but you want to see them take pride in what they can, what they're good at. So this is important too, and I'm putting all the words up so we can talk about it. Here we go. Family balance. So, right, if you have a child who has emotional regulation problems, it could strain your marriage, family relationships. So it's very important for you to take care of yourself and your relationships and the other children in the family. What's really important is one-on-one time with both or three. Sometime it could, maybe it's only once a week if you've got such a busy schedule, but a time that you're only dedicated to your child with ADHD, or only dedicated to a sibling, something special that they look forward to. And what really works, put it in your calendar. If they see their name in your calendar, they know that they're important to you, and this is the time, and you're going to be there, and you're going to be there for them. So that's important. And take care of yourself, your emotional well-being, and nurture your friendships and interests. So when you're going to school, the school connection, don't go alone to meetings if you don't have to. Keep records and work with, not against, the teachers. Make sure that your child is getting the appropriate accommodations. Include your child's insights and concerns in the plan. So I feel like I'm going speedy because I want to be there time-wise for you. But on July 26, 2016, this was a huge victory for the ADHD community. The U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, issued a guidance clarifying schools being obligated to provide students with ADHD equal educational opportunities under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And that's so students who are classified have an IEP, students who aren't showing educational deficits and aren't entitled to an IEP, but they have ADHD, can have accommodations under a 504 plan. So a few key points of the guidance issued by the OCR: schools must evaluate a student when a student needs or is believed to need special education or related services. This is a related service. Schools are obligated to provide services based on student specific needs and not based on generalizations about disabilities or ADHD in particular. It clarifies that students who experience behavioral challenges or present as unfocused or distractible could have ADHD and may need an evaluation to determine their educational needs. So from my experience in schools, this kind of work is really important, because if your child does not have a deficit, an educational deficit, and does not have an IEP, there may not be funding for things like a paraprofessional or a behaviorist. But teaching, being smart about how to address their needs is important. That's why parents have to be educated, teachers have to be educated. Everybody who is responsible for educating your child needs to have strategies and ideas and tools for your child. Okay, because the bottom line is satisfactory academic achievement should not rule out an ADHD diagnosis or support. So it takes a village, and you are the chief and head coach. You are responsible to develop the best staff and team. even if you need support and resources. Make sure that everyone is working together and informed to help your common goal. And you need to work on raising a resilient and confident child. You know your child best. Trust your instinct, your inner voice, and also bring them in. Hear what they're thinking. Your child knows themselves too. Believe their experiences as real for them. Pay attention to their gifts, their talents, and passions. And these are the key to helping them stay confident, optimistic, and motivated. These challenges are real. Know that intelligence and potential do not always help them in the moment. They need skills and strategies in the moment. Help them accept and embrace support services. Different is never easy. We all need help sometimes to be our best selves. In any classroom, we have children leaving for reading support, math support, English as a second language support, ENL services. We have children leaving for OT, PT. We have children we have children using special tools, having preferential seating. At Manor Haven School, we had pedal desks and desks with foot fidgets to help those children. We had special seats so that when you're on the rug, you're not rolling on the rug, you're sitting in a real little special seat on the floor. We had one student who took that little special seat with them from second grade to third grade to fourth grade. That was the way that she learned best. And she wanted to bring her seat with her. So of course she did. The relationship. So the greatest impact parents can have on their children with ADHD is to help them understand what is truly getting in the way of meeting their goals and providing them with the knowledge, tools, and strategies to succeed in school and at home and socially and in life. And I was once asked at during one of the training sessions what we thought was the executive function that was the hardest for children. And it wasn't to be in school. And what it was the inability to regulate emotion. So that's something that we need to work on with our children, because that was most upsetting, because that sometimes children stayed away. These were the children that didn't get asked over for play dates, and that hurts, because if that child had the tools to manage themselves, then they would be accepted. Teachers can help them with the learning that goes on in the classroom, but I feel like they really need to help themselves with regard to emotional regulation. Parent training has been identified as the most important variable in helping children with ADHD thrive. So I'm going to go to the last slide. This is a slide that explains the 7 sessions of Common Connected, and it's building a house, and your house has walls and a roof and a foundation and internal workings. And that's the framework for this 7-session course. And session 1 goes into more detail on ADHD and executive function challenges. Session 2 helps parents remain calm and connected, and it's all about the importance of remaining calm, and it gives parents strategies. Improving communication in the house, how to be an active listener, how to have family meetings, how to teach your child, how to be part of a conversation. Encouraging collaboration, that's collaborative problem solving. Achieving a household through clarity and consistency. And although we say that, I don't think I mentioned this, but children with ADHD are not motivated, or not extremely motivated by rewards and punishments. It's just not in their internal workings. They are much more likely to act because of intrinsic motivation, not extrinsic. And then but there is a place for consequences, and session 6 talks about consequences, and session 7 about making better choices. So there is a 7-session parent workshop beginning the last week of October. And it's limited to 15 because that's a manageable group online. So if anybody is interested in learning more about it, please email me. My email is Bonnie with an I, no E. So it's Bonnie S. Cohen @gmail.com. You can take down my phone number as well. And I'll send out, there's a lot of resources that go with the 7 sessions. You'll finish up with a very thick binder. But for this session, I'm going to send anybody who would like the sample letter to teachers and the 12 things children with ADHD would like their teachers to know. I think it's
if you could send that to me, I'll make sure it gets out to everybody.
sure.
Not a
Sure,
problem.
absolutely. So
Yeah,
I'm going to stop here and see if there's any other questions.
There are.
good.
So let me read a few
Sure.
more before
Mhm.
we actually end up. Wait, let me just make sure I get to the right spot. Not there. Okay, how much pushback should I give on an evaluation from the school? My child has been diagnosed with ADHD, but the emotional regulation seems to have the highest ranking.
And so pushback in what way? I would like to know. Is it,
Joanna Bishop, do you want to unmute for a moment and you can explain that? Joanna,
Sure,
you
I can unmute. I'm I'm in my kid's bedroom. I'm
Go ahead.
asking because they kind of push back like, oh, he's doing fine academically. We don't need to evaluate him. We don't think he needs to be evaluated. But there's so much emotional regulation at home that I'm having difficulty with, that I got, like a wink from his teacher that she thinks he should be evaluated. She has a child herself with ADHD. And I'm like, what am I waiting for him to,
so what I think needs to happen, because but that is, the truth is, if your child is doing academically on grade level, it's very hard to get them classified
Mhm.
As needing special education services, because ADHD, we don't want to say emotionally disturbed. That's a classification, but that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
So what you need to do, and what I think you need to do, is ask for a meeting of the team, with or without you, and let them come up and tell you what they could provide for your child to help with this.
Sure.
And so one of the, and that's why I'm working with teachers right now, because collaborative problem solving is very, very effective for children like that. If they feel that they're being heard, because what they're seeing and feeling, and the anger that the children are expressing, it's very real to them. But
Right.
things like finding out what the triggers are and making changes and preventing it. So I think it's conversations, and maybe a little research has to be done at the school level by the teacher, just to watch what are some things that happen before and during and after, and then bring the child in, and maybe the child can offer some help too. But I don't know, as far as pushback, I think you have every right to ask for, what strategies can you come up with to help my child in the classroom to be successful
Sure.
in the classroom.
Thank you.
Okay, do you feel ADHD often coincides with sensory seeking behaviors? Hot topic. If so, what professional do you feel is most appropriate to diagnose sensory seeking behaviors?
Yeah. So there are challenges, I want to say. Yes, ADHD can be paired with many different things. So for sensory seeking behavior, I think speaking with your school psychologist is a way to go as a start. And just get a recommendation from a pediatrician, but it would have to be, if it's ADHD related, you would want to bring them to somebody who clearly says specializes in ADHD or specializes in, ADHD with sensory seeking behaviors. That's what I think. I think the first thing, if it's a school age child, is start with a conversation with the school psychologist and get recommendations from them. Because it might be something that they have dealt with before and that they, somebody in their realm of proximity who can be very helpful.
Is there a checklist or test you can give us for teens and adults? Not children, but older, teens and adults.
I'm going to look through my resources. If you can hold that question, I believe I have something. So if you can email me with that, I can send it out to you.
Okay, I will send that to you, and that's for Laura Cohen or Lara Cohen, but I will, I'll email that to you. I just write this down, checklist for teens and adults. Okay, got it. Let's go on. Do you have a specific advice for a 7th grader with ADHD that splits time between divorced parents' houses?
So that's,
7th grader.
I understand that that's difficult because for a child that has difficulty staying organized, it's hard. So if there could be, 2 sets of necessary things, so the child doesn't have to remember to bring things back and forth, I think that would be helpful to the child. I don't, it's a 7th grader?
7th grader.
So it's a child, and so there are many teachers, but we would always say, make sure the teachers know the situation. And, but I think that's the best, checklists and double supplies so that they're not stuck without something that's very important. And maybe
if I could just add, Bonnie, just as a
Yeah.
social worker talking here, and if there's any other emotional elements that are contributing, because that is a difficult time, talking to the social worker at the school, seeking some kind of therapeutic connection, involvement on top of that would probably be helpful, because there may be some other emotional stuff going on
Right.
dealing with that. How much is the workshop, Bonnie? You mentioned it, but they want to know the cost.
Oh, okay. So the cost is, if you're just seeing the total is $490. But I would, and that's through Common Connected. There's a $55 charge if you just want to come to session 1, which is subtracted from it. But I would give anybody here who is who's here with me today, I would give you a 15% discount on the, I'm not going to do the math right now, but on the full session. No, I could do it. Yeah. So I would give a 15% discount to anybody who mentions this workshop.
Okay. What can I do now in bold letters to help my son who wants to go away to college next year?
So I think you need to start allowing your son to be a little bit more self-sufficient now, right now, and take a step back and really praise what your son is doing alone, alone by themselves. Have the conversation, review what they need to be responsible for, and take a step back and build confidence. I mean, there's going to be things if they're going now. Is that going away to college? Did you say going away?
Go away to college.
Did say make sure they know how to do laundry. That's very important. I mean, there's so many things that parents do for their children while they live in their home. Shopping, being responsible for all their schoolwork. Sometimes very often children are independent, but if you have a child with ADHD, you're going to be more likely to be super involved. And just leave them on their own. Like, one of the things that comes up in the workshop over and over again is like, parents are afraid that their children are going to fail. But they're without that little bit of failure, and I don't mean devastating failure, without that little bit, then they don't build those skills up. They need to learn, okay, well, if I don't do this, this happens. So I'm going to make sure I do it next time. So I think just building independence is very important, and the sooner the better.
I'm not sure, Amy Levy, I'm not sure what your question is, but your comment is that my daughter also has misophonia. Is there a question with that? Amy, are you here? If you want to unmute.
Yes, but so my daughter is 15 and she was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and she has had misophonia since she's 6. And for those that don't know what that is, it is diagnosed as a hatred of sound. So imagine yourself in an elevator with somebody cracking their gum and you're like ready to die, or you're sitting with somebody who's having a Caesar salad, crunching on the lettuce and the croutons and talking with their mouth open. So because of that, and I am her trigger, even if I was eating chocolate pudding. So we don't sit together as a family anymore like we used to, which is so important for a child's development. When my daughter was in elementary school, she took, standardized tests, and she didn't want to, she always rushed through everything and whatnot. And now she is, she's had some learning issues, because whether she wasn't paying attention or she had comprehension issues, and now she's in high school. And I don't know if I think it said you work with teens, like the elementary school and the middle school didn't catch it. And we inquired and they said she's fine. And she was assessed over the summer privately because the school couldn't get it together to do it. And it's her civil right going to a public school to have these services. And they're only now getting on it. I don't know if you've had people come to you with kids that it could be as old as 15 with a fresh new ADHD diagnosis or learning issues diagnosis, sort of
So
how you deal with that.
First, does she have those like super earplugs? Because
She does, but you really can't wear those in school. There are people, I'm on a Facebook group with people who are parents of kids with misophonia. People have noise canceling headphones. We have those. I mean, she has them at home, but I've said, oh, maybe she should wear those for dinner,
So are they refusing to assess her now for
So she got private assessment. We spent thousands of dollars this summer and she did an assessment.
Did the school accept it? Because that's always a worry that some school districts will say.
Right, because I want her to have an IEP or a 504. So they are now going to start providing her with 504 services. I want an IEP. But I've heard about this. I mean, she's had misophonia since she was, let's say 10, diagnosed at 10. And so I remember going on these Facebook pages and seeing people whose kids couldn't go to school when they had this, or they were acting out, or anyway, I don't think people on this call have misophonia, so I don't want to take even a minute away from.
What? If a parent requests that their child is evaluated for education, special education services, the school has to test them.
Correct. And so the guy that does the testing is out on medical leave. I asked for the test in May. They said he was fully booked for the rest of the year, for the rest of the school year. I said, good, do it over the summer. They said he doesn't do it over the summer. So we took her and had her assessed privately. Now we have shared the results of this test done privately. Mm-hmm. And my daughter's guidance counselor and this assessing guy, they are both out on medical leave. So they have a sub in there, and I talked to her today, and she is trying to help me. I live in Los Angeles. I'm from Long Island, and that's how my mother saw this thing. That's how I'm attending, but I'm all the way across the country from you guys. So schools are, they have this thing. Oh, your kid has an issue. Okay, fill out the form, and we have 60
So
days. I'm
in
like,
the meantime, you have a 504
it's
or?
October. I came in May. It is her civil right.
Yeah.
Right.
They have, yes, I have requested a 504, and they are beginning 504 activities for her. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, that will be something for you.
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you. One person in response did say my son was first diagnosed at 16. So clearly, and Bonnie, you mentioned that your daughter had been diagnosed as well.
14.
Ninth grade, right. So it does happen. That seems to be our last question. Does anyone have anything last minute they want to put in the chat? This is your quick opportunity before we wrap up. People have lots of thoughts and questions, all good ones. Anybody? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being such a wonderful group. Thank you, Bonnie, for
Thank you for having me
sharing
here.
so much of your expertise and information. I wanted to remind everyone that there is a survey in the chat. We would really appreciate if you are able to complete it. And as I said, I will send it out as well. But if you could, it would give us a lot of information about how we can, provide trainings and other educational pieces and information for the future. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and I want to wish you all well. Thanks, Bonnie, again.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a
Right,
good night, everyone.
Take care.
Thank
Good
you
night,
so much.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
I don't see it in the chat. I don't see it in the chat.
What the
Survey.
survey? It was at the beginning. It's at the beginning. You'd have to go all the
Oh.
way to the beginning. Can you see it?
No, because I joined kind of late.
You know what? Let me put it in. I'm going to put it in again. How's that? Or I'm going to try to put it in again. That's probably a better way of saying it. I'm going to do it right now. Paste. Oh, I did. I think I did it. Enter. Yep, there it is. Do you see it now?
Yeah, I got it.
Good. All right.
I missed a lot of it. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's going to be on our website. We recorded it.
Okay, I'll watch it again. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.